Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Fully Charged. Well, it's relatively special. It's all about Formula E. Now, I've been very interested in this obviously since its inception a couple of years ago. I was lucky enough to be hired to present the technical aspects of Formula E for ITV. So the stuff I've already shot will be shown around the races that will be shown on ITV4. I'm currently in the pit lane at Donington and there's some testing going on. Thankfully at the moment they're not going past. Oh, there's one. That's how noisy a Formula E car is, not at full speed. He's dawdling a bit. So this first season, just to explain, all the cars are exactly the same. They're all built by Renault Spark, the frames and the chassis and the steering. So they're identical. The amount of power they've got is identical, the amount of battery they've got is identical. Next year, so the season that starts in September 2015, the next season they're all building cars, so they'll all be in different cars next season, but there will be, obviously, just like Formula 1, very strict guidelines as to what they can and can't do.
I saw the first car at a posh launch in London last year. At the time, the whole race season had barely been announced, and no one quite knew what was going on. Much of it was explained by the man behind Formula E, Alejandro Agag, a Spanish financier, one-time chairman of Queen's Park Rangers and European politician. His SIM card is said to be priceless because he's a very well-connected chap. A few months later, I visited the brand new Formula E headquarters at Donington Raceway, where the cars were delivered to the teams. By this time, the teams had been announced: Amlin Aguri, Andretti Autosport, Audi ABT, China Racing, Dragon Racing, E-Dams, Mahindra Racing, Trulli, Venturi and Virgin Racing. A few weeks later, I had to get up obscenely early and go to Westminster Bridge for the London launch of the season. It was quite spectacular, and some rubber was burned. I'm going to have a talk with some of the people behind the teams now, just to get some stats. How many kilowatt hours is in the battery? How powerful are the motors? All those things I know, but because I'm a bit thick, I've forgotten. Because I don't know anything about your history. So you've been motor racing for a long time.
I have. I've been racing since I was 9 years old. A lot of the guys that are racing here now, you know, we all grew up and we made our way through the ranks together. So
you know a lot of the other drivers anyway. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. And then so the next thing, which is much more important, is really how different it is driving one of these cars to driving a petrol car.
It's not that much different in that it's a race car. It looks like a racing car. It's got slightly more rearward weight distribution because the weight of the battery is actually quite heavy. In the engine map 6, which is the full power map, it's got a lot of torque.
Right.
So it does feel quite powerful. Obviously we're on road tyres instead of racing slicks, so they tend to move around on the blocks a little bit. And then you just have to think about all the regen work that you have to do and the paddles and things. So in the corners, the cars tend to oversteer a little bit more than usual. And then down the straights, you're trying to regen as much energy as you can. So you're trying to fiddle with all the buttons and do everything.
Right.
So you turn into a bit of a strategist as well as a race car driver.
And you've got to be, I mean, I've held one of the steering wheels. There's a lot of buttons.
There are a lot of buttons. But it's really important that you use as less energy as you can, going as quickly as you can, because with the two cars in the race, obviously that's different. You've got two cars in the race as opposed to just coming in, stopping, refueling and putting fresh tyres on. So it's going to be a combination of the way you communicate with your team and how smart you are out on track. Obviously it's silence in the car, which is slightly strange.
It is noticeably quieter then. I mean, you are...
Oh yeah, I mean, we're having a conversation and there's cars going around. You wouldn't be able to do that in Formula 1 or IndyCar or anything else.
Yes.
Well, I'm Nikki Shields. I'm the presenter and pit lane reporter for Formula E. You can find it on ITV4, Fox Sport, CCTV in China, TV Asahi, and make sure you tune in.
I'm Jack Nichols and I'm the television commentator for the new Formula E Championship.
So Peter, I'm relying on you to explain a little bit about the technology behind these cars for the average viewer who doesn't really know anything about how cars work. So they're pure electric, they've got a battery pack, they've got an electric motor. I think most people understand that. Roughly, what is the kilowatt hour storage capacity of the batteries?
Okay, so it's state-of-the-art racing car.
Yeah.
It's got a 32 kilowatt hour battery,
right.
Big box, big battery, holds a lot of energy. We're allowed to use 28 kilowatt hours of that battery.
In a race?
Race.
Or in that car? So
in that car.
Yeah.
So then we have a second car that has the same 28 kilowatt hours that we can use. And the two of those last the race distance.
Right.
So we start the race with this box of energy. And we also have the ability to recover energy around the track. So not only do we have to work out how best to recover the energy depending on the circuit we're going to, but also how best to deploy the energy. And there are various efficiency strategies you can use for deploying that energy more efficiently than another strategy.
Right.
And it's how you balance that around the track that enables you to get a fast lap time and use that box of energy to go further or faster than your competitors.
And presumably is that entirely under the control of the driver? I mean, presumably you're giving input all the time. You're seeing how much energy they've used.
It is. So it's completely under the control of the driver once they've left the pit garage.
Right.
But prior to them leaving the pit garage, we can optimize the car. We can change a lot of motor maps. We can change a lot of settings. We can predict and set up the strategy that we'd like the driver to follow.
Right.
But then once the car leaves the pits, it's down to the driver to drive that car the way they want to drive it, to recover the energy how they can and to deploy the energy how they can.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a driver's championship.
But then from the point of view of the motor racing experience you've had in the past, which I know is very broad and deep, this has presumably been quite a steep learning curve. It's a completely different approach. Or is it?
Yeah, I'm going to say it's not.
Right.
It's not. The tools you have are different. But all you're trying to do is optimise that car for that track, the particular time of the day, and for whatever test session you're in, whether in a qualifying session or a race session.
Right.
And so we're just trying to optimise that at every possible opportunity.
Right.
So we don't have an internal combustion engine.
Yeah.
We don't have a KERS energy recovery system. But what we do have is the ability to recover energy through the motor on this car.
Yeah.
And we have a big box of electrical energy rather than a fuel tank with petrol or diesel in it.
Right.
So it's still the same.
I mean, a traditional petrol car could still run out of petrol at the wrong time.
Exactly, and have done.
Yes.
Do you know, quite often when teams go right up and they run out of petrol.
Right.
It's the same. It's the same principle. So it's not really that different. It's
Right.
complex. It's very complex.
Yeah.
And the amount of data you get off the car is significantly. Well, it's not different. It's not, the quantity isn't different, but the quality and the type of data and the sort of things you're looking at are slightly different, and that's what we've got to understand.
I mean, there are a staggering amount of laptops behind each car. Every time I see a car, there's always a huge pile of laptops everywhere.
And if we had more hands, we would be using more laptops.
You would use more.
That is how it would work. That's the nature of the game.
Yeah.
Another intriguing bit of technology is the induction charging plate for the medical and safety car, BMW i3 and i8. Very swish.
So we're in alignment mode now. We're in drive. So we would just drive, basically aim for the centre of the base pair in this case.
Wow.
And
is there any way of seeing on that what charge you're getting from the in terms of
so
volts and time and
line it up again. The handbrake on because we're on a hill. Turn it off.
And that will eventually do something.
And it's doing its business right now. And that'll go up to 3.3 kilowatts.
Right.
This is sweet.
The first race is in Beijing on the 13th of September, followed by Putrajaya, Punta del Este, Buenos Aires, Miami, Long Beach, Monte Carlo, Berlin, and finally London on the 27th of June 2015.
P6 quali lap, P6 quali lap.